Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Housing Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting remotely, following the instructions at the top of the agenda, and every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to Mass General 7C 30A Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of the open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recordings. The town is recording it, and if members of the media wish to record it, they can do so. I see Eileen there. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting and must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Now, all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for any discussion to the extent permitted by law. So this is a webinar format. I see the Berkshire Edge here, Eileen, Mooney, James, and Vivian, and we have a full quorum of the Housing Subcommittee, and I will do roll call. Malcolm?
I'm here.
Jeremy?
Here.
Garfield?
Here.
And I am here. Okay, approval of minutes, April 25th, 2023. I resent them earlier today. Do I have a motion to accept or any?
Move to approve.
Okay, move to any discussion?
Need a second?
Sorry, we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call. Malcolm?
Yes.
Garfield?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Aye.
And I'm aye. Approval of minutes of May 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Malcolm?
Yes.
Yes. Garfield?
Here.
Jeremy?
Here.
And I am aye. Okay, so we've approved the minutes of April 25th and May 30th. Subcommittee's announcements. Malcolm?
Nothing specific that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Garfield?
Nothing, just the agenda.
Okay. Jeremy?
Nothing.
Okay, and I'm fine as well. So moving on right along, under new business, you'll see that the real estate transfer fee to fund affordable housing. Originally, that presentation was going to happen before this meeting, and that's why it was crossed out. It's scheduled right now for July 10th, for the July 10th select board meeting. So we'll just make a note of that. Ross will present his findings and we'll have a discussion. So it would be great if you guys could come. If not, it's not necessary, but just giving you a heads up that it will be at the July 10th select board meeting at 6 o'clock. Town staff capacity discussion. So Malcolm has taken the lead on working on a document based on our housing worksheet and identifying where we can see that staff is needed and where the leadership falls. So I wanted to begin this discussion. It's a pretty in-depth document, as is our housing worksheet. But what I wanted to do is start discussing that. And it's a wonderful breakdown. Thank you very much, Malcolm, for diving into it and working with Chris on that. So if it's okay with the rest of the subcommittee, I'm going to share my screen and dive into that. Is that fine with everyone?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Did everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, so again, this is based on the worksheet that we've been working on these past, few months or several months. And it's broken down, as you can see. So I'll just read the top for those that don't have the sheet in front of them. I know Eileen had requested some documents, so I think she has this. But just real briefly, it's the housing initiatives leadership requirements. And in summary, we've received and identified over 20 initiatives that have the potential to increase housing in Great Barrington. Many of these require leadership to plan and implement ongoing programs. This report is to begin estimating the level of effort required and the potential benefits. Ownership of any of these initiatives and the personnel to lead them may come from these or other organizations that have the staff to follow through, such as nonprofit housing development and advocacy groups, BRPC, other consultants, town staff. And what follows is the 12 initiatives described in the report, and they're grouped by near-term impact on housing on the town, with particular emphasis on affordable housing. So what I can do is, I'm not going to read it verbatim because it's a lot of words, but I can summarize them. And then Malcolm, if you want to jump in, and I'm not sure if you had a discussion with Chris or if it just goes as far as him responding to your inquiries. But number one was hosting a housing symposium, including local and regional stakeholders. Malcolm, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is basically what I did here is I put in italics the text from an email that Chris responded on each of these items. And then I added a status line down the bottom that says, okay, well, this is kind of where it stands, because some of these things were already being done. This particular item is getting traction. I know, some people in the planning board want to do an outreach on similar to this, so we maybe want to combine things. Chris pointed out it's a bit heavier duty task than what I had envisioned, and because he's actually done this. So it is a high effort task, but it is something I am even more convinced now that it needs to be done, but we just need to figure out who's going to lead it. Who's going to do the heavy lifting.
Great. So what I will say is I attended a housing coalition planning meeting. Jennifer Meehan over at Berkshire Housing led it, and what they did is it took place in Lenox in the town hall a few weeks ago. So Berkshire Housing took the lead. BRPC was there. CHAPA, which is an umbrella organization for housing advocacy based in Central Mass. They had a presentation. So it was along the lines of trying to begin a housing coalition in the Berkshires. So, a lot of the advocacy groups are based in Boston or Central Mass. And what we're trying to do is take that wonderful information and resources and bring them here to the Berkshires. So it was attended pretty well. It was a kind of a smattering of a lot of Pittsfield folks, some people from South County and some Central County. And I think the idea is to follow up, but just being aware of kind of duplicating efforts. What we might want to think about is before diving in, and from what Chris said, it was a lot of work, and I did talk to Jen afterwards. So we might benefit from either bringing her on, or I would be happy to do some more investigation on what their plans are as a follow-up, so that they're not having kind of a housing symposium and we're trying to put it together. I did let her know that this was Great Barrington focus. So, obviously that's a big, that's a big distinction, but I just wanted to kind of flag that at least in the Berkshires, they're talking about having more kind of symposium-like meetings.
Yeah, and I think these, leadership meetings, and I'm sorry I missed that one because I was out of town, but these are really important. I think, though, that what we're talking about at the planning board is more bottom up. community outreach, not just, leadership symposiums.
Yeah,
And to educate the community on the need for affordable housing and the strategies that are available for affording housing, and maybe what sacrifices people are going to have to make if we are going to have more
Yeah.
housing in our town.
yeah.
Do-
She's
I have
for
a question.
outreach. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Does it matter what the community thinks in terms of us going forward, or because I'm wondering if we should be asking the community how they even feel about this, because it doesn't seem like a lot of people are jumping up. I know I'm a little ahead of time, but ADUs, etc. I don't see people clamoring for that. And do we want to even solicit their interest?
Well, I think to the extent that we're going to need public money and bylaws at town meeting, we really need to educate people on what our goals are and what, because I mean, even something as simple as, supporting ADUs, I mean, it's still going to cost money and somebody has to pay for it. And so the town has to be behind it, the citizens of the town.
Mm-hmm. So we do want to inform or solicit the public, or no? Is that what you're saying?
I
I think we should, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
I absolutely.
I don't, Garfield, are you talking about soliciting the public to see if they want to have this sort of outreach? Or are you saying doing this sort of outreach from the bottom up?
I'm not sure what you mean from the bottom up.
So what we're talking about is not like what Malcolm said, not like having an outreach and community engagement with the town, like the people of the town, not with leadership.
Right, with the town, people of the town, right.
But I don't think we should ask them if they want it, because you're gonna get a mixed bag, and the whole point of it is to, try to convince people that they do want affordable housing in town and trying to get them to the place where they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I think
because they're not there.
Yeah, I think as Chris, I think any outreach is positive, but it is a heavy lift, and it would take substantial requirement from town staff to help put it together, depending on if we wanted to make it something that we invited obviously residents. So we would have to organize quite a bit of presentation and seating and enough of public notice, and I think having this joint meeting with the planning board that's coming up, I think we could do a deeper discussion about that. I don't want to get too hung up on that right now, just because I want to touch base, but I think that having the discussion about whether we're going to have one is a good start, but it is a heavy lift, and I think we need to know what the outcome is. Is it just education? Is it asking people to get more involved? Is it advocacy for a particular program or policy or bylaw? So I think it is definitely worthwhile, but it is a heavy lift. As in my opinion, I think it's a heavy lift.
I have another question when you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Now, I did read this all through, and some of it does seem quite extensive. Are we, and I'll apologize for my ignorance here, but are we going to look at some of these and maybe eliminate them if they're too much? Like this may be something that might be too much. From reading what Chris says, it's maybe all of these initiatives we can't use. I don't know what the complete purpose of if that's part of it, but boy, oh boy, yeah, that's something that I don't know if could happen.
Yeah,
the way you read Chris's response.
This committee is such a heavy lift. I mean, housing is so encompassing, and it touches economic development, it touches health, it touches, so many people across the board. So, what I'm trying to do is hone down and focus what we actually can get across the finish line, whether it's bringing a bylaw or, getting a deeper dive onto one of the policies or programs. And and shaking the tree, basically. So if we look at something, we say, hey, this is too much of a heavy lift, or it's something that town needs to to take the lead on, or we want to suggest it to a nonprofit, say, hey, we think it's a good idea. Maybe this is something that Berkshire Housing takes a lead, or Construct, or, CDC. So
Mhm.
I think it's identifying the needs and then saying, hey, is this something that we want to prioritize? Or it's going to be too much time? Do we want to go to things? So I think
Okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
at least I know what we understand. I got
Yeah,
it.
We're not endorsing
jump in.
anything at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll share the screen. We'll go on to number 2. And it doesn't mean we're deleting this, but I just wanted to kind of take a look and see how we're going. So number 2, I'll just develop an ADU strategy, and Chris says the Affordable Housing Trust is trying to develop a pilot program to give grants that would help with the cost of building an ADU in return for being affordable.
We are.
So so Darko, do you want to speak about this, since you probably know more about this in terms of the Affordable Housing Trust, what they're doing right now?
I wish I could give you more of a breaking it down for you, but I know this is something we're working on. We haven't really thrust that much energy into it, other than because it's the ADUs. But it's something we're looking at, something we're thinking about doing, and having to see how much work we can put into it as well.
Okay. Jeremy or Malcolm, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I wonder, I think this one, we should probably wait, because the trust they had like a break off. I don't even know if it was a subcommittee, because but there, that was working on this. And so this one, I don't know if we really even need to take to the joint meeting.
Okay.
Because I think it's probably mostly, like, if we want to have anything with this, we should probably meet with the trust after they've finished after at least their next meeting. Because I know they were working on this.
Okay.
We are, and I think it's a smart idea.
Okay.
I would say one thing, though. This list doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
just because it's on this list. There are things on this list that the Affordable Housing Trust is going to do.
Yeah.
And I was tempted to just say this is being done.
Okay.
As a status. We could do that. We just say status.
Yeah, I think that's probably, right now, I think that's in the hands of the trust, and it's kind of in their court to tell either, planning board if it's zoning, or select board if it's something else, if they need something else, right?
The only thing I question here is, just to make sure that the Affordable Housing Trust isn't just thinking in terms of money, but is also thinking in terms of education and promoting ADUs as well.
And I think that can go on to number 1 if they're looking for that.
It should be part of number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking housing anyway, and especially affordable with the town, we probably should have the trust involvement with any sort of outreach, anyway.
Okay.
That's what I believe we are trying to do, and will do. And I agree with Jeremy, I think, and Malcolm. This is something that we should definitely be doing the lifting and getting back to you, or meeting with you. But it is being done, so we don't have to do it again.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, in terms of ADUs, what I have heard, or what I just doing some investigation about ADUs in general, there's a couple things with just the cost and the ability to finance. So I've heard that it's something that's very hard to finance. So
but there's work on that, though. That is slowly moving, right?
There's work, yeah. So financing is one of the big hurdles I've heard, and also just the economy of scale, that it's actually quite expensive to do unless you have grants. So if the town is able to provide grants, but I've and then the other question, and I know Stockbridge is wrestling with this with their ADU work, is so when people if someone were to avail of a grant or build an ADU, then is it going to be for residents or workforce, or could it be used for short-term rentals, or how much of restriction on that, if they're taking grant money from the town, would we want to how much involvement would the town want to be in terms of steering the direction of what that ADU is being used for. So
I think that's all part of the discussion that they were
Okay.
having.
Okay.
I attended one of those meetings and then I missed the other ones
Oh, super.
that
Okay.
they were having about that, but
So they're on top of it. Okay.
but I think that aspect they've been discussing.
Okay, super. Okay, so that's great.
We have been dealing a little bit with two people. Part of the process, and we might even discuss this too, is having someone willing to take on that responsibility, having an ADU on your property, if you will. That doesn't
Yeah,
seem
yeah,
smart.
exactly. And, you know, people are hesitant about being landlords, and that's across the board. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's not just ADUs, but
Yeah.
so, you know, there's definitely hurdles. So, okay.
That topic's littered
Yeah.
on this whole list.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
which is
absolutely.
part of the number one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To
Okay.
try to get more people.
For sure. Okay, so number 3, CDBG funds for multi-unit repairs and improvements with deed restrictions. I'll just read Chris's comment. We already do this. We partner with the private sector consultants or BRPC to apply for the funds. And if we get the money, we contract with them to run the program for us. Paperwork is heavy, very heavy, and we could not achieve this otherwise. It's worthwhile keeping this on the list.
All right.
So, any thoughts about that, or we're happy with basically that it's being done and the staff is on top of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think his comment about keeping it on the list is a good one, because because it's such a heavy lift, you know, if there's ever discussion to stop doing it because of the amount of staff, you know, the time that staff is spending on it or whatever, then, you know, I think it's important to have the support of, you know.
Okay, super. All right, number 4, work with landlords to upgrade apartments and maintain affordability. Chris says, I think this will be very difficult because it seems first we would have to identify every landlord, identify what the rents are, and figure out what support they need. I think the upfront effort is high and the cost to make it successful would be high as well. Not as much as building a new unit, however. So how do we feel?
So with the status on this, there's a few of these where Chris was pointing out the difficulties here, and I think we just need to further define it to make it achievable, to define something that's achievable.
Or to define to see if it's achievable.
Right. Well, we're defining it in a way that's, right, exactly.
Yeah, because we might get to a point where we define it so it's achievable, but then not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it needs more work.
Yeah. And I think, and I will, once we kind of run through this in a few meetings, I did ask for an inventory from the town last year of apartments in town that might give us a sense, at least downtown apartments that, and some of them have been purchased since we actually started the inventory. So the Mahawi block and the Sotheby's building and the Marble block. So things, you know, are done, but it might give us kind of a starting point to identify at least some of the apartments directly in town. But yeah, I mean, it might be something that, you know, we ask landlords to contact the town, and if they, you know, have apartments that could use upgrades and that they want to keep affordable or change into affordability, that at least we start a list and we start, you know, getting that together so we're aware of that. So. Great.
I'm wondering if when we're going through these, if we can maybe remunerate some of these and where they aren't, maybe this wouldn't be number 4 anymore because of just what the feedback we're getting from Chris as well, and maybe make this something that, I don't know if it's something we want to spend a lot of time with, looking at the difficulty of it, and maybe put it down a little further and work on something that looks a little bit more achievable.
Okay.
So
maybe Lee, you and I can take this after the meeting. Could, you know, I'll be happy to modify this and then send it out for comment or something. But
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Putting the things down that, you know, are less achievable.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 5, create affordable units from blighted properties through the AG's abandoned housing receivership program. And I have something to say about this, but Chris says this is relatively low cost, low effort. We spoke with the AG's office about this program. If a unit has a code violation, building or housing code, then we can refer to the AG for this program. The receiver process takes very little of the town's time and effort. We have maybe 2 or 3 properties that could qualify under this program. At least 2 might be total tear downs. The end result is hopefully a rehabbed unit rented or sold on the open market, though some receivers are dedicated to making the rehabbed units affordable. So Construct is so to become a receiver, you have to get certified and be registered with the state. So Construct is, I believe, one of the only ones right now in the area that's actually actively working on receivership. So we completed one recently in Beckett. We have 2 in Lenox that we worked with the town of Lenox, which we sold through receivership, and we have another one in Beckett that we're working on currently. But what I will say is that it is a strain on the person that's in charge of it. So we have a housing director, and it takes a lot of her time.
Yeah, at first I was really surprised by Chris's estimate of low cost, low effort.
No, it's
Because
actually,
I remember what you said,
Yeah.
but I think what he was saying is from the town standpoint.
From the
town
town, because
staff,
we're not gonna be the receivers.
The
exactly.
receivers, from the receiver
Yeah,
standpoint.
I mean,
Exactly.
this is, I mean, I think that's what he's thinking the whole time through this list is
Yeah,
what's the towns, and that's what the voters really want to know, right?
yeah,
No, they do.
yeah.
If
And the thing is,
we're gonna do this, though, somebody has to do it. Somebody like Construct actually has to be willing
Yeah.
to
yeah,
take
and
2 or 3 properties and run with it.
exactly.
Does
And then they're-
Habitat do
yeah.
this type of thing as well? Are
No.
they're not a receiver?
No, because they're doing their rehabbing on their own property. So because this is such a long process.
But doesn't, but isn't,
I don't know if they are, on the register list. I can't say that, but I don't believe.
but
that they-
doesn't this become the receiver, don't they become the property owner? Isn't
Well,
that
that's not through the AG's abandoned housing receivership fund. That's a different. So
Okay.
they rehabilitate blighted properties, and then they put them up for home ownership, but they don't do it through this program.
okay?
This is something we've talked about too with the affordable housing. And I personally like this idea of trying to rehab places.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful, I mean, it's environmentally, solid and sound, and it's just a heavy lift. So at least through this abandoned housing receivership fund program. Okay. Should I move on?
We're
or-
achieving that, if you will, and we like that, and it's something we want to put our efforts in. Is that what we're saying, or not?
Well,
Well,
it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of effort involved, and it seems like the town sort of, doesn't it? Did the town say they're already sort of doing that?
They're prepared to do it.
Oh, they're prepared to
they're
do it.
prepared to do it, yeah, but what would happen is, and it's not that, what could happen is they could identify properties and, work with someone like Construct and say, hey, could we work with, you to as a receiver? So I
Well,
think in terms of identifying properties and bringing it to Construct and saying, hey, can you work with that? I think that's definitely worthwhile. So.
I mean, I think the problem with this one is it's the town tattling to the state, right? So it's the town tattling to the AG's office, like, hey, this property is, and so it might not be a particularly popular one amongst the town, amongst the people of the town.
Well,
Because
it's
basically what you're doing is you're saying, hey, that property over there, it's got these code violations, and, we might want to think about, and like, so when there's no clear, I don't know, where there's no clear owner that's active, and, then I don't think that it's really a problem. But if it's someone that's there, it's like the town does have to do its due diligence to make sure that there's not some sort of, extenuating circumstances why.
Isn't it a perfect example of this is Grove Street, or am I wrong?
Yeah,
No.
yes. Well, that wasn't done. through
Grove
this
Street was
program.
taxes, right?
Yeah,
But it's still a house that was in wicked ill repair and needed to be rehabbed for sure.
But it
Mhm.
didn't go through this program because I think the town just took possession because
Yeah.
of the taxes and didn't have to go through it. Do we go through? It's not through this AG
No,
program.
it wasn't through this.
It
No.
wasn't through the, I don't have, myself, I don't have a problem with the AG. No, we need as much help as we can get. I don't think we're tattling. I think we're putting in big guns that we maybe need because we need to get moving.
Yeah, I think,
I'm not afraid to push the envelope a little bit.
And I don't think there's a list to generate. I mean, I think, you know, Chris has the unpublished list or the unwritten list in his head, or somebody does, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just acting upon it. And so if we think this is a thing, we should definitely bring it to the joint meeting and see if there's, you know, support, you
yeah.
know. I mean, I think in the end, this is a select board. This is really a select board decision, whether or not, you know, to pursue this. And I mean, it sounds like there's nothing to do. It's just like, hey, yeah, let's pursue this. And then, you know, Chris, do it. And then,
So, so the way it worked with Beckett and Lennox, so the town had identified properties. I know Beckett has quite a few abandoned properties and blighted
Yeah.
properties. And a lot of them had been used as vacation and seasonal homes that were no longer in use. So they have quite a few properties up in Beckett. And they approached Construct to do that. So the first one was successful, and now they want to continue that. And same with Lennox. So they identified two houses side by side and approached Construct. So I think, you know, what we could recommend possibly is that the town, if there is anything that they identify, to approach Construct or another receiver, but I know Construct's the one that's working in the area, and see if they have the capacity to do it. Having worked for Construct, I know that they don't at the moment, but at least we can begin the process of identifying properties. And if it doesn't go through the AG's abandoned housing program, at least we can tag it and for something else. So
does the town get to decide who the receiver is, or is it the AG does?
well, you need to get someone that drives it, that's actually takes it on.
Okay.
So the receiver, you know, would have to say, okay, yes, you know, I'll take on the task, and they would act. as
And
kind of-
that's before the AG, that's before the AG gets involved?
Well, the town would identify a blighted property and then apply, I think, through the AG's abandoned housing receivership fund program.
Yeah.
And work with.
Oh, I see. So the town applies with, can be with a receiver in mind?
Well, they would identify the property. So I think the first step is identifying. So I think in any case, identifying blighted properties, whether it's for non-payment of taxes or abandonment, is a good step. So, you know, what we might want to do, I think it's further down the line is, or further in this report, is just to separate that. So identifying blighted properties, rather, you know, whether it's for non-payment of taxes or otherwise, is a good step. And then we can maybe and out, you know, whether they might fall into this abandoned housing receivership fund.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I mean, I think if the town isn't in control of who the receiver is, then we should almost take this off of this list, because if the AG's in charge of it, who's the receiver, you know, of accepting whatever receiver, then, you know, we don't know, we can't determine whether or not it's going to be affordable or not. And so then it's really not quite on this list.
It has to be affordable. So after it's rehabbed, it has to.
Oh, for this program?
Yes, it has to be rehab.
Oh, cool.
And it goes to a household that qualifies. So it's all income restricted, and the whole purpose is to make it affordable.
Oh, okay.
And it's deed restricted.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Okay, so number 6, and Garfield, I'm mindful of your time. How are you? You know, if anyone wants to kind of continue on at another meeting, let me know. Otherwise, do you guys
I'll
want?
give you 10 more minutes.
Okay, so we'll do number
Change a little
6.
bit.
We'll probably do one more, and then we'll start.
So Lee, I think that's a really good one for the joint meeting,
Okay, to talk about this.
because it sounds like that one might be queued up anyway. And so,
Well, I think what might be worth, I think we should definitely, I agree with you in terms of talking about it, but it's also do we have someone that can actually take on this role as a receiver and get it through the program? So,
But if it has to be affordable anyway, then it doesn't really matter, right?
well,
Because
I guess my point is that we don't know if Construct is available, or if there's someone else that wants to do the heavy lift to do it.
yeah, so I mean, if these properties are really abandoned and blighted, then it doesn't really matter, right? So, I mean, they're still going to be abandoned and blighted, but then they're going to be ready for someone to take receivership of them. So it doesn't seem like that should be finding the receiver should be the holdup in wanting to do this. Or unless that's what the town's application for these things has to include the receiver.
Well, if it's the AG's abandoned housing receivership program, you need
Yep.
something like Construct in there to do the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Construct
So
doesn't have
so
the
you're saying
bandwidth.
when the town does these things, it needs the receiver.
yeah, it cannot
As
happen.
it
Unless there's someone-
cannot happen. So the application itself can't happen without that. Okay, I get it. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so number 6, grants or other assistance for rehabbing and or converting multi-unit homes. Chris, I think this one is a high cost, high effort, high cost.
This is one of those ones that you need the developer to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we need money, so, this is legislation, it's grants, it's either the town or, some kind of money that's
Yeah.
coming from state or feds.
This one sounds like mostly private unless the trust wants to start taking these kinds of things on.
Yeah,
Well, I think the point of this, though, is to
Is the
research
list,
if there's grant money out there that could be used to incent. Right now, I mean, we're trying to do zoning incentives, but there's nothing like monetary incentive to to incent affordable housing, as we found downtown with the apartments. But I just think I don't know if the grants are out there. Chris would know. If he knew offhand, he would have told us. Hey, there's a lot of money out there we're just not getting. So
yeah.
So you're talking about like municipal grants? Because I would think Construct would know on the private side, right?
Yeah.
If there's grants to be found for this type of thing, because it seems like they like to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. So with what Construct does is it's a combination of fundraising and grants. So a nonprofit or any housing advocacy group, it would be that's what they do. They research mechanisms to fund property. So it's really something that is usually led by a nonprofit or another organization. But I think the town, as Chris kind of said, it's high effort, high cost, and it might be something that is more appropriate for a nonprofit to take a lead on. But to work maybe in conjunction with town staff to kind of make aware, say, hey, we're aware of this property and see who wants to take the lead.
I mean, one way you could do that is you could make the town could create an inventory of these things, and then the town could write CPA proposals for certain amounts of funds for for each property, and then to incentivize some private developer doing it, whether it be Construct or CDC or whoever. And that, if they were to purchase these properties, then, it comes with this grant if they're going to create affordable housing at whatever restriction, is attached to it.
Yeah.
We could do that already. I mean, the funds are there every year. And so that's one way that you can sort of, attach a grant to it, via, CPA grant, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what's happening at this point is when a property is coming on stream to be resold or come on the market. One of the questions is to the developer and to the property, to the seller is, are they willing to work with the town to keep it affordable? So that might be letting nonprofits know that it's coming up for sale and hoping that they are one of the first in line. It might be working with someone that will be bidding on it or purchasing it to, how do we keep the tenants there? And how do we keep it affordable? So it's kind of a mixture of being aware of properties coming on stream and approaching either the seller or the property agent and saying, hey, what can we do to keep this affordable if it is affordable? What can we do to keep the tenants there?
I mean, one of
making sure they're
yeah.
aware that there is town money, there is CPA money, there is affordable housing trust money. So.
I mean, the difficulty with that is like, I would imagine a lot of these properties needs, like, if they're gonna change hands to an organization, like Construct, they're gonna need significant renovation. And in order to do that, I mean, Construct maybe has the capacity, and maybe there are organizations that have the capacity to house the current residents while the renovation is taking place, but like major renovation, I don't know if people can, live through it, like occupy the units while this is taking place. I mean, it would be, like it would be hard for them, but it might be impossible for the construction.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's up to the person that purchases the property. So all the town can do is try to step in at the right time and try to get a sense of the intentions and offer ways
but
that we might be able to keep it affordable or protect the current resident renters.
But if the intent is the current residents, to me, it's like a much bigger lift than just keep it affordable. Because if if somebody buys the property there and there's no residents anymore, renovates and makes it affordable, that's a lot easier than buys the property with tenants and then has to figure out how to house the tenants while the renovation is taking place. And then because it's a whole additional cost.
Yeah.
And, and so, I mean, I think it's, if the town really needs to make its intentions clear and is there what can the town do, to incentivize that happening,
Yeah. So, I mean, that might be, more PR and making property owners and developers, aware of the town's wish to try to protect affordable housing units and, making them aware that there possibly is money out there to help them. So.
Because there's not really much. I don't know. I mean, I think if the town's going to do it, it all comes down to money, right? Because in those situations, it's not a matter. We can't do tax stuff with all these nonprofits anyway, right? Because they already have that. And so, I mean,
it all comes down to money ultimately.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the initiatives. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just saying, one of the initiatives that that Ross is going to be speaking about on July 10th is the initiative that we brought forward, looking for a transfer fee that would generate money that would ultimately go to the housing trust, affordable housing trust, to do things such as this, to step in when there might be a property up for sale, to protect it. So
that'd be lovely.
So that's one of the things that as a committee we could bring forward a proposal that might generate money to do this. So it's all kind of
tied.
So,
I mean, I think sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm mindful of everyone's time, so I wanted to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
And so we'll continue, and I'll make a note. Malcolm, we can work together and make the notes we went up to number 5.
6.
Yeah, excuse me.
So Lee, I just want to give my plug for number 1 again, because I think anytime it goes down to money, you're going to need big support from the town, right? So you're going to have to get a lot more people invested in this than is currently. These things should, affordable housing stuff should fly through a town meeting, and they don't now.
Right.
And so Yeah.
Yeah. no,
So
ab-
I think that's part of the point with one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it's ultimately town staff, it's town staff resources and who's going to take the lead. So we can for sure bring this up at the meeting, which segues.
But well, just before we go ahead. I'm sorry, you go ahead, and then I was just gonna say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as you know, when we have our select board meetings and we talk about the town taking ownership or something, I don't know if anybody remembers Dobie Gillis, but when we say the town owns the town, it's like, no, word, right, exactly. Town, word. The town doesn't like to do that kind of stuff. Every time we mention something, it's like, oh, the town, we don't want to do, I don't know, I mean, can we, I don't know. How much does the town want to do?
I think our town does a heck of a lot with a very thin staff, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be careful what we lay on them.
Yeah, we have to the priority planning that the select board does twice a year is very mindful of town staff. And one of the reasons we do that is to make sure we're not putting too much on the town staff. So
Absolutely.
we do have to be mindful of that. What I want to do though is segue real quickly into the joint select board planning board housing meeting that I believe is still plugged in for July 24th. Jeremy or Malcolm, have you had any more meetings about the focus of this upcoming meeting or?
Well, one of the objectives, one of my objectives, and I can't speak for Jeremy on this, is, maybe to review what our charter is. Are we expected to run with any of these? Are we expected really just coming up with lists, or are we pretty much done? So if we come up with a list of things that need to be done, are we just going to pass it off, or the select board and the planning board expecting us to follow up on?
When you say done, you mean the housing subcommittee wrapping up, or?
At what point? What is our deliverable?
Oh, okay. I mean, is there discussion that there's an end to the housing subcommittee? Because I kind of see it as something that's so necessary that there's always going to be a need for a committee to brainstorm and be aware of new initiatives and programs and policies.
If there is a need for more brainstorming, then I think that if that's what our charter is, then that's what we should do. But I do think that the select board and the planning board should be expecting something from us.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, because, when we started out, it was initiatives that the select board and the planning board could act on. This is, of course, is much broader, which I think is much more beneficial. But I think we should just make sure that that's what our charter is.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
Is there any chance that we have these 12 initiatives here? Is there any chance, and it seems like maybe piggybacking on a Malcolm or maybe along that lines, but maybe there should be, after out of these 12, maybe we need to put it down for us that there's 4 or 5 things that we really can do, and do those things that we can do, like the things that are really high cost, a lot of heavy lifting, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we're not ready for that yet. Maybe we need to do things that we can definitely do now. That's not gonna, I'm not saying it's because it's hard work. That's not the point. But the point is doing the stuff that we know we can do, the things that we get done, and not spend time on things that maybe we can do, or we know are going to be really difficult. Let's do the things that we can narrow down and say, this is what we definitely can do. This is what we're going to bring to you. This is what we want to work on.
Yeah. And I think that, the 2 initiatives that we've already brought to the select board and planning board is a good example of, we identified at least 2 potential programs and policies that we brought to the select board, which, possibly might then go to the town. So, if we continue moving things along and not get stuck, and, again, with the housing symposium, offer these and see, what kind of lift is this realistic for us to bring. But yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, the ones you brought before the select board with the low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we have a lot of things that have been completed there now. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, we've done, I feel like
there's
we've
a lot
done,
of yellow on that list. And
yeah. Okay,
I mean,
so-
and there are things on the list that maybe like once, like they're on the list, like we don't need to touch them anymore.
exactly. I mean, what I'm hoping is we'll get through this, the 12 initiatives, hone them down and say, okay, what's left for us?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then-
I think there's a
and
number on
really-
those that we can just, like, we don't have to do anything more.
And then, one of us might bring a new initiative. So I really see it as very dynamic and progressive. So we might go through these 12 and say, hey, we can't do anything more. And then Jeremy might come up and said, I hear about this town doing this, and we can talk about it. So I see it as ongoing, but I appreciate that we're going to be meeting with the planning board and the select board to discuss, what the charter is and what our goals are.
we are all for subcommittee.
The subcommittee, yes, exactly. All right, so next meeting, real quick, we generally are meeting once a month. So just to flag the dates that are coming up, July 10th is the meeting that Ross will be discussing the proposal of the transfer fee. That's the select board meeting on July 10th at 6. And then on July 24th is the joint select board, planning board housing discussion. So
I will not make the 10th, Lee.
Okay.
I have a historical commission meeting that.
Okay.
so-
okay, no problem. And again, it's not required for, Jeremy and Garfield. So if you can't make it, that's fine.
July 10th, the select board, I think it might be there, huh?
Well, you'll be there.
I think I hope I'll be. I don't know. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, so the two of us will be there for the 10th. Okay, so when do we want to meet again, knowing that we've kind of already have a heavy schedule coming up? Today's the 27th. So we could have a check back in on the week of the 31st, like beginning of August, maybe August 2nd.
You don't want to do it right after the joint select board, planning board meeting on the 25th, or do you think there needs a little bit of time to digest that?
Let's see. What do you guys think?
I think it would be good to have it on the
The
25th.
26th? Okay. Oh, the 25th. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. It's a good idea.
I may be an over planner or like to do things too much, but do we want to have maybe one more mini meeting before we get together with the planning board? So you can say no to me. I'm okay with that. I just kind of like to make sure everything's in order. But if we don't need to, I'm fine with that. I'm just asking.
Well, it's not a bad idea. I mean, we could meet on the 18th.
Yeah,
Do we do that? And then.
you can do that and just touch base. That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
I can't. I won't be here the 18th. Doesn't mean
Okay.
keeping a meeting. I'm going the 17th to the 19th.
Okay.
It's in Maine for a few days.
How about July 20th?
I can do that.
I can.
It's not a Friday, I hope, is it?
No, it's a Thursday.
Okay.
I can't do it.
Can't do it.
Actually on July 20th, I'll become chairman of the BRPC.
Wow, you're kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Wow,
That's great.
that's cool.
Now you have the inside track, so
Yeah.
we got the brain trust going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't want to do it on Friday.
I mean, you don't have to have it before. It's just.
I guess we'll do it on the 25th.
Okay, all right. So going back, is the 25th?
Yeah.
Does that work for everyone? Okay, so July 25th at 5:30. And I'll work on the agenda, and then Malcolm, I'll just touch base with you and just make sure we're on the right page for the 6 initiatives that we've covered.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
And so I will open it up for, does anyone else have any, before I open it up to citizen speak?
Nothing for me.
So citizen speak, is there anyone that would like to talk this in the audience? Please raise your hand. Okay. So media time. Anyone from the media? All right. So do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Malcolm,
Yes.
Garfield,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Aye.
I am an aye. All right, well, great meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you guys
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay.
Bye.